Hi there, and welcome to another episode of 411 Pop Culture, where real people talk about really everything. I'm your host, Justin Steele, and tonight we are going to talk about what went right and what went wrong about Halloween Kills. Now, I watched it 3 times over the weekend, and my feelings about it changed over the weekend. There were parts that I really liked right away. Other parts I kind of felt like, oh, what is this about? And then other parts that I didn't know how I felt. And then I watched it again on Saturday night and again on Sunday night, and overall I did enjoy it. Spoilers, there's going to be spoilers, but first and foremost, what I do when I review movies, whether this be for Wicked Horror or 411 Pop Culture or The Rabid Dog's House, I like to always take a look at a movie and think, who is this movie for? Who is the specific audience for this movie? When it comes to things I like, especially in the horror genre, there's a lot of different factors for me. I can enjoy a great performance. I can enjoy the atmosphere or the style. I try and think though, like, who is this movie for? Now, for me, I'm a huge, huge fan of Halloween. I grew up with 2 older brothers. They either were always watching Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th, and for whatever reason, Halloween wasn't really in our house a lot, and I kind of came to this one. I kind of stumbled upon Michael Myers. We watched part of it in a TV productions class, and I thought it was really great. And then it was like on TV that weekend, like the TV version of Halloween and Halloween 2. And when Halloween 2, 1981's Halloween 2, picked up with Laurie Strode's storyline, Dr. Loomis and everything, I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I had no idea the sequel would like keep the story going. And like I said, when it comes to reviews, for me, I try and always think, well, who is this movie for? Is this, and I think of it, if it's a series or a franchise, is this for the fans? Is this for just the casual moviegoer audience member? And obviously, Halloween Kills had a lot of fan service to it. But in general, when reviewing a movie, it may or may not be my style, but the people who made the movie might not have had my kind of style in mind. There are different things that appeal to me in film and pop culture. When it comes to horror, the 80s slasher is typically at the forefront of what I enjoy, but I also love gothic horror or contemporary spins on gothic horror like Fright Night or Salem's Lot, or the horror of Stephen King in a film like Cujo or Misery or Gerald's Game, where he takes an everyday contemporary setting and can turn it into a battlefield played out by everyday characters. I love a good performance. The overall movie can be not so great, but if there was one really interesting performance, then I can come away saying I love that movie. Or something like Dario Argento, where it's more about how did he make me feel, or the style, the atmosphere, the look of the movie. Even though the acting might not be great in that one, I still think it's a good movie because of it brought this feeling out of me. I do think that 2018's Halloween was one of the stronger entries in the franchise. I know a lot of people loved it, but because of one actress missing from the film, it kind of tainted the whole experience for me. And even though I loved the music updates and of course, the return of Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode, I will never get over the lost opportunity of having Danielle Harris in the film. Halloween fans, Danielle Harris, Halloween's 4, 5, but also her contributions in Rob Zombie's Halloween and his Halloween 2. And, Jamie Lee Curtis is the queen of the of the Halloween franchise, but Danielle Harris is the princess. And I feel like she needed to be involved. I think it was just this lost opportunity that we could have had this definitive Halloween movie. I can't speak for all the Halloween fans. Like I said, we all love it for different reasons. Some people could care less about the Jamie Lloyd arc or even the Laurie Strode arc. They just want to see Michael Myers do what Michael Myers does. But for me, I really watch these movies because I love seeing an iconic villain, such as whether it be Freddy Krueger, Jason, Michael Myers. I want to see him go up against a strong final girl or characters that I've come to enjoy or have invested in. But I feel like there are a lot of fans out there, and I'm one of them, that loves the character of Jamie Lloyd and felt cheated when we didn't get to see Danielle Harris. We all know the behind the scenes of the producer's cut now. most of us. Well, long story short, they kind of cheated her out of the role, or she committed to it, but then it was like behind the scenes, it just didn't come together, and very much after she had put in a lot of effort for it. And I feel like, we wanted to see her come through in that arc. When 2018's Halloween came out, I do think that there were discussions to have Danielle Harris come back. The original script apparently had the character of Jamie in it, but apparently I really feel like there was some like miscommunication behind the scenes, because I think Danielle Harris has stated she was confused, like, well, I would be playing the daughter, but it's not Jamie Lloyd. I'm confused. And I just don't see why, Danielle Harris couldn't have played Karen Strode. I think it would have been the definitive Halloween movie. We'd have the Queen and the Princess, especially with the way 2018's Halloween, and I promise this is a Halloween Kills review, but it's a part of like how I feel about the movie. And I feel like the end of 2018's Halloween, which should have had some sort of different moniker, because it's like really obnoxious to have to constantly refer to it as 2018's Halloween. But having that sort of like, but 2018's Halloween having the sort of ending that ended with this sort of generational female power of like this grandmother, mother, and daughter coming together, I think would have like been so amazing to see Danielle Harris in the role of Karen Strode. Now, nothing against Judy Greer. I have loved Judy Greer in everything I've seen her in. I think she was great as Karen Strode. But in terms of fans that have been watching this for over 25 years, since Jamie Lloyd was a character, I think we all kind of wanted to see, her and Jamie Lee Curtis perform together. Even Danielle Harris was like, well, in Halloween H2O, when it was a son, she was okay with, she got that, that's fine. But now that there's a daughter, it is sort of like, well, we kind of want to see that. So I think it was just a missed opportunity. So the reason why I bring all this up in terms of Halloween Kills is, for me, a reason why I may or may not like a movie are because of reoccurring characters, stars, certain storylines. And one of my favorite things about Halloween Kills was bringing back Kyle Richards as Lindsay Wallace. And we'll get into that in a little bit, because I kind of want to end more on a high note. But that's one reason why I was kind of like, well, even though I'm bothered, or not necessarily bothered, but have a few issues with some of the things in Halloween Kills, like the whole mob sequence, all that, I was willing to forgive a lot of it, because I really love having somebody who's like in the original cast, Kyle Richards, who I absolutely love on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. I think she might be my favorite of the Housewives. And she had like a head start anyway when I first started watching Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, because she was Lindsay Wallace in Halloween. So to have her come back to the series, I thought was just fantastic. And kind of the way that her story went with it, I was gonna enjoy Halloween Kills no matter what. So that's why I want to say, like, there's so many different reasons why people watch a horror movie. Some of it might just be for the body count, the gore, the blood. Some might be for like hearing an amazing soundtrack, or just the roller coaster ride. And I think that there's like all these elements that come together and contributing factors. And for me, a lot of the times it is, if there's some really good, strong performances in it, I'm probably going to overall enjoy the movie. But even still, as much as I did enjoy 2018's Halloween, for me personally, because of the lack of Danielle Harris, as well as a few other factors, it is not my favorite entry. I still think that Jamie Lee Curtis's return in Halloween H2O was much more fun, much more what I think the average horror fan is going to want to see, with like this high energy celebration. I love a good Easter egg, but I think 2018's and Halloween Kills both were really heavy-handed with the Easter eggs. It's fine, but I really do feel like Halloween H2O was more this celebration of the 70s and 80s slashers that was like a part of this resurgence that came about with 1996's Scream. And I just think that it was kind of more of a fun return for Jamie Lee Curtis. I really did enjoy 2018's Halloween, bringing it back to the style of the original. Every director always says, "Oh, we're gonna bring it back to the style of the original. This one's just like what John Carpenter would have done." And typically, it's like the opposite. But I do feel like 2018's Halloween really did capture the spirit of the original. However, like Halloween Kills, the two things that I had issues with that movie and this movie also was there were moments that I didn't really think belonged in a Halloween film, as well as focus on the wrong characters. 2018's Halloween focused on the ill-fated love triangle when I think it should have focused more on the babysitters. I wish that Allison had gone to visit her friend, and the movie should have focused more on that than the whole Oscar Cameron thing. I just got the impression that the filmmakers were maybe trying to rewrite their own youths a little bit. But what I also didn't really feel right in 2018 was the whole Dr. Sartain going mad thing. I think it was meant to be an interesting commentary on like who is crazier, the patients or those running the asylum. These bigger ideas were also explored with the mob mentality aspect in Halloween Kills, which I'll get into in a little bit. But just in general, the whole mob thing, I think they succeeded in their point, but it distracts a lot from what I believe we all want to see in a Halloween movie. Previous films have wanted to do the whole involve all of Haddonfield. For example, Daniel Farrance has revealed in interviews that his initial intent for Halloween 6 Curse of Michael Myers was to lead into a sort of new trilogy. We saw a hint of this with the Mrs. Blankenship character. I think his intent was sort of the opposite and to lead into the idea of Haddonfield is more evil as a whole and the residents were more involved in Michael's evil intent. But like the Dr. Sartain bit before, I feel like these ideas are what fans have always said for years they didn't want. They don't want a Halloween film to be too complicated. The filmmakers have said they wanted to go back to the streamlined and simpler ideas of John Carpenter, yet I feel like Halloween Kills is everything that they always say they don't want. Now, I'm not saying per se that I didn't like it or that I didn't want it, but Rob Zombie's films were maligned for making it all too complicated. But I feel this push to make Michael back into just a supernatural boogeyman has forced them to make things too complicated. I think the whole mob thing is great and it's like there's moments of it that's like it's good. It's good to explore sometimes these deeper ideas, but again, when I think of like a Halloween movie, I think what do I really want? I'm all about having a deeper understanding of the nature of humankind. I get what they were doing, sort of trying to, this is Michael's masterpiece to create this mayhem. And I do like, and I think I'm going to mention this again, so pardon me, but just off the top of my head, I like that though Charles Cyphers return because that's one of the best things I think about this movie. And again, when you ask, when I get asked like, hey, did you like this movie? My thing is, yes, I did, but again, it's for the reasons of like returning, like to see these characters again, like Lindsay Wallace or Sheriff Brackett, and it's kind of like, well, but do I like the movie? Yes, there's parts of it I really did like, but it's mainly because of the return of these characters. So if you didn't really care ever about these characters, then it might not be your cup of tea, especially with the whole heavy-handed mob thing, which again takes us out of what I think we really want to see in a Halloween movie. But there were also some moments that are very, very much like a Halloween movie. But I did like with the whole mob scenario, especially bringing back like Charles Cyphers as Lee Brackett. He had the sort of in Halloween 2, which I get is not really part of like the continuity anymore, but his character in Halloween 2 was kind of blaming Dr. Loomis quite a bit and saying like, why'd you let him out? You let him out. And really, it's kind of frustrating because Dr. Loomis is the only one who didn't want to let him out. So you get kind of frustrated with the sheriff for that. So I really enjoyed in this version he kind of comes back and he's like, hey, Michael's turning us into monsters now. He definitely gets a little bit into the frenzy of the whole thing, but he's the one who kind of looks up at Tommy Doyle and is like, no, wait, this is wrong. We're wrong. We're doing this wrong. So I kind of like that was sort of changed because in Halloween 2, which I do love, 1981's Halloween 2, it might be my favorite of all the Halloween movies, and that's with the original Halloween. I love the original Halloween. I guess I don't really when I see like rankings for Halloween, I kind of take the original out of the running because it's just different. It is of course this own entity. Even the flaws with it are like still amazing. It's amazing in because of the flaws. But of the sequels, I do think Halloween 2 is my favorite. But I like some of the other entries too that people seem to always like kind of malign. Like, I'm a big fan of Halloween 5. Again, I don't know how I would have felt 20 years ago when we thought maybe that at the time they probably thought, well, this is the last one, or it's going to get so confusing. I don't know. So I think it has some of the best sequences in that. The whole barnyard sequence, I actually really have come to love Tina's character, but the whole laundry chute sequence with Danielle Harris, I mean, there's some really great stuff in it. But anyway, oh, see, look, right? Halloween 5. But like I said, I like that Charles Cyphers got to come back and represent the rational side of the mob, whereas in 1981's he was like irrationally blaming Dr. Loomis. Then, of course, I do think it's interesting that he went on to participate in the final mob sequence and was killed. Especially because I do think it was one of the scarier moments of the film, right after he gets to redeliver his one good scare line, and then it was his ultimate fate that sort of changed the direction of the ending. But like I want to talk about, the cast coming back, such as Kyle Richards or Nurse Marion. Those were my favorite moments of the film, and hands down, I think Kyle Richards was the best part of the movie. I mentioned before how there was always the comment about not making things too complicated. I don't mind a little complicated, even if it is a Thorn cult related complication, as long as we are also getting what we came for. For me, that is a strong, Final Girl-esque woman going up against Michael, having a suspenseful chase scene, and crawling away if necessary to survival. And in Halloween Kills, we got that with Lindsay Wallace, of whom I also always sort of pretend is the Lindsay that we see in Halloween 4, because why not? That girl would have been the right age, driving around with Rachel and Jamie, and we also got it with the whole Allison and Karen by the end of the climax. But if you look at some of the big things that I think are sort of wrong or are not sort of like jiving too well with me, is the way that it's being written, such from this like male point of view. And what I mean by that is if you look back at the original Halloween, John Carpenter obviously, contributed in essential ways. The music, the direction, the style, the film. But somebody who was just as like equally contributing to everything behind the scenes was Deborah Hill. And I think that's what these later films are missing. I mean, the literal woman who sadly passed away, but also the idea of Deborah Hill. Where is the female point of view? I saw the male point of view of the female point of view in these movies, but what about a woman's voice? I will certainly not diminish or minimize John Carpenter's contributions and work, but I really think Deborah Hill had just as much as an essential contribution to what made the original such a success, not to mention her continuing contributions to 1981's Halloween 2 and 1982's Halloween 3. I was delighted to see Marion and Lindsay, but really I can't help but notice that they definitely took a backseat to Tommy Doyle. I don't think it was so much intentional as it was all these men didn't know what to do with the women at the bar. I mean, Kyle Richards actually came back. Why couldn't she have told the story of the Boogeyman at the talent show? Yes, Tommy may have seen the Boogeyman first in 1978, but Lindsay didn't hesitate to believe him. And what was up with the whole Lonnie actually saw him face to face? I'm pretty sure Tommy and Lindsay also saw him face to face as well at the top of the landing. And ultimately, why did we make these sort of despicable characters into all of a sudden these semi-heroes? The Elams, bullies that became heroic? Cameron was the worst in 2018's Halloween. Seriously, what is the underlying point of this? To show that bullies can change? Well, sure, great, that is important. But to turn on a dime like this, why so much devotion? I'm not trying to make like this big speech about all of this. I can't help but notice it. When you watch the original Halloween, you get this attachment to the characters, especially, these three babysitters. Well, two babysitters and their friend Linda. Totally. And a big part of that was Deborah Hill's writing. And I feel like, again, at the bar and stuff, Lindsay and Marion had very little to do. They were just kind of like, oh no, what's going on? But then I love that they did take, Kyle Richards, and she had the moment where she gets to like put all these bricks in this candy bag, and she's yelling at the kids to run, and she stands up and fights, and Marion fights and stands up. But like I just feel like they could have had just as much as Tommy, like wanting, like everything he was doing in the film could have been just as much Lindsay. And I really did enjoy Anthony Michael Hall's performance. But again, he's not the original Tommy, so it's not like he had to have these lines. I will say though, again, my favorite moment was Kyle Richards standing up to Michael Myers, a solid chase scene. But I also feel like there was a moment cut. Am I the only one out there? So it goes from her like hiding under like the root of the tree. She sees Michael in the water. Then we cut, and the next time we see her, she is like covered in swamp and muddy. And I have to think that a scene was cut because Kyle Richards has said in interviews that one of the things they were worried about in having her come back, especially being, on like Beverly Hills, she was going to have to get into this swamp. And I guess they were like searching around for alligators and snakes. But based on what we saw, she wasn't really in the swamp that I could tell. So I don't know why that was such a big deal. And it is sort of like, well, wait, why would you cut out this moment where she clearly went up against him or something happened, because she looks fine, but he decided not to kill her? Too many questions are unknown. Now, I do know, and I think it's pretty common knowledge, that Kyle Richards did break her nose during the filming of this, so I have to wonder if that occurred during the swamp sequence that we're not seeing. So I do hope that we do get to eventually at some point see that. But I have to think that wouldn't be something necessarily they'd put in deleted scenes if it's a scene where she's breaking her nose. I don't know. Okay, but again, it's common knowledge, so I don't know why they don't include it. But again, Deborah Hill contributed to the voices of these women. I feel like these men, it's speaking through the women, and they're being respectful, but I don't think they're being authentic. And having somebody like Deborah Hill behind the scenes gave the voice of Laurie, Annie, Linda, and I think it would have helped with Marion and Lindsay in this movie, or even with the returning, trio, grandmother, mother, daughter, Laurie, Karen, and Allison. I think the dialogue would have been better suited, you know. I also did really enjoy the Big John, Little John. At first, I didn't know how I was going to, it could go so wrong. It could be taken so in bad taste, and yet I thought they portrayed an authentic gay couple, which I thought was pretty cool, especially because even though what happens, it was respectful. It was done in a tributing way that's good and effective in a horror movie, and overall I really enjoyed that. And overall I did enjoy Halloween Kills. Like I said, I ended up watching it 3 times this past weekend. I think that there's some uneven moments to it. I think, it's the Empire Strikes Back, where it's the second film in a new trilogy, so it's going to have some open-ended ideas. And overall, I actually did come to enjoy it more than I think I even did maybe 2018's Halloween, because again, the whole Danielle Harris leaving her out of it really bugged me. And I'll always think like what a lost opportunity there was to have that. And bringing back Kyle Richards, a character like Lindsay Wallace, who is, a part of the original movie, I think made up for that quite a bit for me in Halloween Kills. So that's why it's, this is my personal review. You may agree, you may disagree, but I thought overall that it was a little heavy-handed with the mob scene stuff. I get what they were trying to do. I don't know that they successfully executed it, only because this is a Halloween movie, and I don't think that's really what we want to see. Now, again, like I said earlier, I've never had a problem with, everybody's always like, oh, well, you got to keep it simple for your target audience or whatever, but I don't mind some complicated ideas. And I would have liked some of it, but I felt like it was taking us too much away from what we really want to see in a Halloween movie. I think, though, we still got quite a bit of what we wanted to see in a Halloween movie. But a character like Cameron, he was such a jerk in the prior film. So why does he now have to sort of be a hero in this film? I think he could have still done most of his role being still the character he was in the last film. So it was a little bit obnoxious because again, I think that's where 2018's Halloween really dropped the ball. I thought that Allison should have left these boys behind and spent the evening with her friend. I can't remember her name, but she was played by Virginia Gardner, and in it then that would have been sort of like a recollection of the original Halloween or echo of it. But instead they kind of focused on this like love triangle, awkward, and I really feel like it was one or two of the filmmakers sort of like call back to their own youth and trying to like show somebody like, hey, I really was an okay guy and etc. And it's sort of like, listen, don't live your youth through here. I also think that that's where, this one, it's sort of like, why are we giving so much time to Lonnie Elam? Like, why? He was this bully from the original film, and now he's sort of this okay guy. Why, again, do we need to take away from the character of Lindsay and give him these sort of better moments? Or why didn't we just have after Tommy and Lindsay, when they ran away from Michael Myers, why didn't we get to see that? That could have been the moment where they were trapped by him and really had this extra invigorating moment. I did enjoy the stuff with Dr. Loomis. I couldn't stand the accents of the guy. I felt like it was too drawn out. Like has he killed a gay? And I just thought that was a little too much. But the actor looked amazing. He did a really great job. And the first time I watched the 1978 sequence, I was sort of like, I was so worried that they were going to mess it up that I couldn't enjoy it. But seeing how everything played out, I thought it was a lot better the second time and third time around. And of course, Jamie Lee Curtis was terrific in it. I really like the sort of dynamic that's developing between her and Will Patton. I think it's going to be interesting that they're going to pick up 4 years later, especially now with the ending of the film that I thought, again, I don't mind some complicated ideas, but I feel like things that people complained about that I've read on the internet or online for the past 20 years, either about Rob Zombie's Halloweens or the Thorn Cult Halloweens, whatever, I felt like it was always like, man, don't make it so complicated. But I feel like they had to kind of make it complicated again to get to this whole, just, he's now the boogeyman. I'm personally fine with it either way, and I enjoyed it. I thought they brought it home in the end, but I could see people, I hope people aren't being hypocrites out there. Like, if you didn't mind the complications of this one, then go back and watch those, because I think they deserve a second chance. And overall, I'm excited to see what they're going to do with it. I think it's an interesting setup with what's Laurie Strode going to be doing 4 years later. Allison's going to be there, and obviously there's going to be this, revenge taken on Michael Myers. But I like the remaining players that we have set up. I will say, again, when you watch a movie for the first time and you see like that this mob is about to take out Michael Myers, you're sort of like, oh, this can't be how it ends. And I really did enjoy how they used an iconic character like Sheriff Brackett to sort of change the flow of that scene, which led to then Michael Myers, again, he's the boogeyman. You can't kill the boogeyman. And ends up in a very creepy sequence. But I really like that it kind of took place in the Myers house. I really enjoyed the whole, like I said, I enjoyed the Big John, Little John moments. I thought they were sweet and how it kind of all came away in this chilling, effective way. But I like that it also took place so much of it was in Michael Myers' original house. I think that a lot of us as fans, when we see the houses, the Michael Myers house evolution throughout the years, where it starts with this like very simple two-story frame house that becomes this gothic mansion over the years. I like that they were able to show how effective it was to work in the space that was created. And I'm glad that that's where we left off. I guess there's a deleted scene or alternate ending that might be coming out where she's on the phone. Karen is on the phone. She gets a hold of her mother. Michael attacks her, and then Laurie hears the breathing on the phone, and that's how it was supposed to end. So her kind of going off, and then like that's where it's end. Like she's gonna go get him now, which is a callback to the original when Linda was choked over the phone, and you hear the breathing. So I like that. I think that would have been a really cool ending, but I do understand that now that it's going to be taking place 4 years later and bringing in all the COVID stuff, I guess, they couldn't end right there. That's one of those things, like, I'm all about them trying to make a sort of social commentary in the middle of a horror movie like Halloween, but I hope they're not too heavy-handed with it, because we all know what we really go to see in a Halloween movie, especially one starring Jamie Lee Curtis, is ultimately going to be Michael Myers, Laurie Strode. I wish Jamie Lloyd was in there, and a final showdown, but we'll see what happens. So thanks again for watching another episode of 411 Pop Culture, where real people talk about really everything. Did you get to see Halloween Kills this weekend? Did you enjoy it? What did you think of its addition to the franchise? Were you a fan of all the reoccurring characters? Did you like some of the sort of changes to the story? And what did you think? Let me know. Have a good one.